Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to Local Church. I am so glad that you are all here. My name is Michael, and it is an honor to be here with you as always. If you are brand new, or you're fairly new and just kind of checking this out, maybe you're not even sure what you think about God or Jesus or church or all that, but somebody invited you, perhaps they bribed you with free lunch or something, and so here you are. For whatever reason you're here, whatever your story might be, first of all, I just want you to know, we are so glad that you are here. I hope that you feel welcome. I hope that you feel comfortable. I hope that you feel safe. I hope that you grabbed coffee and bagels and all that stuff. The second thing that I want you to know is that today is like the perfect time for you to come. It's the perfect week for you to be here. Because today, as Emily mentioned, we're going to do something just a little bit different. I like to, every now and then, take some time to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and talk about why local church exists. And it's like why we think the way we think, why things look the way they look, why we operate the way we operate. And so in order to do this morning, I'd love for you to play along with me. Anybody who's watching at home, I want you to play along as well. And just kind of imagine with me for a second that all of us just got into a time machine. Maybe it looks like a DeLorean, and we just kind of climbed in there like a clown car, and we traveled back in time to August 2021. August 2021. Now, if you're in this moment with me, if you're watching, I don't know when you're watching, but if you're in this moment with me, that's about a year ago. So we've traveled back to August 2021, and local church, the way it is right now, doesn't exist yet. It's not here. In fact, we've only got like 10 people on the local church launch team. But what we just recently did, we do have this location. We just recently signed the lease for this space and this building. The problem is, though, we're in the middle of a massive remodel. There's just dust everywhere. Contractors are all over the place. You got piles of supplies and tools and stuff. Ceiling tiles are all in a disarray. It's just a one big mess. Walls are being taken down. Other walls are getting put up. And so when you walk in this place, you might think, oh my gosh, like this is like a construction zone because we're in the middle of this big, huge remodel. But it's the weekend. And at some point, in August 2021 or, maybe before that, you met with me and Emily. Maybe we had dinner, we had coffee, and, we shared a little bit of our story with you. We told you, hey, we're starting a new church. And you thought, you're starting a new church? I didn't even know you could do that. And then you thought, you guys are weird. Well, yeah, I know, we are. We're weird. So you had coffee with us, and then we invited you to what's been referred to as a launch team meeting. We said, hey, you should come to our launch team meeting. It's going to be at our new location. And so, I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe it was because we bribed you with free coffee and bagels or something, you showed up to the launch team meeting. And it actually looked something like this. This is a launch team meeting back in August of 2021. So when you walked through the doors, maybe you saw Nick, and Nick's kind of quiet, so he sat there and he's just like, hey, nice to meet you. And then maybe you met Nick's wife, Sarah, and Sarah started chatting with you a little bit, and you found out that Nick and Sarah are from Kansas City, and they moved to Long Island to help us start the church. And then you went to go get your coffee and bagels, and you ran into Luann, and she's there making sure the coffee's hot and all that. You found out that that's Emily's mom. And then, Poppy's over there fidgeting with the trash. She likes to make sure that everything's get consolidated and taken out in time, and then in comes JW and Kathy. They're always a little bit late, right? So they come in afterwards, and you kind of say hi to them. Hey guys, that you get to meet them. And then you sit down, and as you sit down, we're all in a circle together, and JW cracks one of his classic dad jokes. And as he's sitting there, he's like, hey, I'm glad that you're here. You should know for me, when I joined the launch team, I didn't know I was joining a launch team. I thought I was joining the lunch team. And then after we all laugh at JW, not with him, after we all laugh at him for his dad joke, I get done fidgeting with the TV, trying to get my slides up, and I turn around and I'm like, okay, everybody, welcome once again to the launch team meeting. I'm so glad that you're all here. It looks like my new friend, and you're my new friend here at this meeting. My new friend got acquainted with some of you who've been coming for a while. We got to chatting the other day, and I invited them, so thanks so much for coming. We're glad that you're here. So we're going to begin our launch team meeting. It's August 2021. Here's how it goes. I always like to start these meetings out the same way, by sharing a few reminders. I want to keep these reminders in front of everybody's mind. So here's how it starts out. Hey, just want to remind you all before we even get started that one day these meetings will end and it will be sad. One day, all the things that we're talking about starting and creating, are going to get started and created. One day, all the dreams and the hopes that we have for the future, it's going to come to be. And so this kind of pre-launch season it's going to be over at some point because all that's going to be done and the dynamic is going to shift. And I just, one day you're going to come to me and you'll be like, I miss those days when it was just the 8 of us. For some of you, when it was just the 4 of us. I miss those days when we were just dreaming and planning all that. I'm going to say, I know, but I told you one day it would end and it would be sad. And it is, but when we got something new to look forward to. Here's the other reminder. This is my favorite one. You, because you're here in this launch team meeting with us, you should know you're an act of God. You are an act of God. Did you know that 2,000 years ago, Jesus made a prediction? And he said, hey guys, I will build my church. I will build my church, and nothing will stop it, not even death. And then Jesus went off and died. But something happened. He came back to life. And all of a sudden, all these churches started sprouting up all along the Mediterranean rim and eventually towards all the nations and all over the world. And for 2,000 years, churches just keep sprouting up. And so if you're here in the room with me at this launch team meeting in August 2021, you should know you're an act of God. That it seems to me that God is going to use you to start his church here on Long Island. That's pretty great. So here's some practical things that maybe you can consider doing as a launch team member, because we haven't opened our doors yet. We're not quite public yet, but here's some things that you can consider doing. You could wear, or you can invite people. Anybody's welcome to come to these launch team meetings, or invite them to some of the events that we're doing or the interest parties that we're having. You could wear the shirt. Here's something about the local church shirts. We give these things away like candy, so chances are most of you have one. But did you know that church shirts have a special anointing on them from God that they don't ever smell? You can wear them 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row, and you're great. They might smell to you, but nobody else smells it, okay? So you wear that shirt all the time. Coffee house, at work, if you can. You wear your shirt everywhere. Get the branding in front of people, builds credibility. Yeah, so wear your shirt. The other thing that you can do is share about it. You can share the posts that we post and we put up on social media and on Facebook and Instagram and stuff. It's really easy. Just click share, just like it, just comment on it. That's a good chance that people will be exposed to local church on the internet first and foremost. And a big part of that is because of you sharing it. So you are an act of God. That's pretty cool. God's going to use you to start his church on Long Island. Now, here's another reminder. It will probably be harder than you think and less glamorous than you hope. Right? It's hard to start a church. It's especially hard to start a church on Long Island. It's going to be a lot of work. I mean, come on. We're in the middle of a massive remodel right now. I mean, there's dust everywhere. Everything's disheveled. We look around and we see, oh my gosh, all of this has to get painted. This flooring has to be redone. All this equipment has to be assembled. Oh, it's a lot of work. Yeah, it's going to probably be harder than you think and less glamorous than you hope because we have no way of predicting what's actually going to happen. We might open our doors on launch Sunday and nobody shows up. I don't know, but I want us to be ready for the fact that it's going to be harder than we think and less glamorous than we hope. But here's the other reminder. As always, it's okay. It's okay if it's not for you. If one day you wake up and you're like, man, this is a little bit more than I bargained for, you should know that's all right. We don't want to pressure anybody or force anybody to do anything. We want you to want to be here. So, our door will always be open and there will never be any hard feelings if you're like, this is a little bit too much. My life is a little too busy. I got to go. So those are the reminders that, I share with you at all the launch team meetings that we go to. So this meeting is going to look similar to, pretty much all the ones that we do. The agenda is pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about some stories, then we'll share about mile markers and calendar development, and then we'll end with some prayer. So let's move on into the story section of our launch team meeting here in August of 2021. And at the story section, what happens here is Emily's going to raise her hand, and Emily's going to say, hey, here's some cool things that have been happening online. I made a couple posts. We got a few new follows. Some people direct messaged us, and I got to message them. It sounds like some of them might be coming. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's awesome. And then Kathy's like, yeah, I've been talking to some friends at work, and it sounds like some of them are interested in coming. I think one of them's going to come to our parking lot. Oh, that's pretty cool. And then I kind of prompt everybody to kind of like share. Is anything cool that God's doing in your life or that you see God doing on Long Island or God doing with local church? And we just chat and hear what's going on in each other's lives. And then we move on to the mile marker section of the launch team meeting. And this is where I refer to like the big old charts that I've got taped to the wall. And on all of those charts that are kind of located all over the place, there's all sorts of lists on there. And so it's a little bit overwhelming. You look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is all the supplies that we have to purchase. These are all the things that we have to clean. This is all the rooms that we have to get painted. This is all the stuff that we have to assemble. This is all the things that we have to get done in order to, actually execute the interest night that we want to have, or the parking lot party that we want to do, or whatever event's going on. And so we just talk about all those little things. And then we talk about all the people that we have to recruit, for all the positions that we have for launch day, because we got to have people greeting and saying hello. Got to have people hanging out with the kids and making coffee and pushing buttons back there and singing songs up here. So we talk about all that. It can sound so overwhelming, but hey, it's got to get done. So we talk about the mile markers. And then we move on at this point to the calendar section. And we talk about some of the important dates coming up, because not only do we meet together as a launch team and talk about what has to get done, but, we also meet together as a small group, and we go through Starting Point together, which is just a group for people who are curious about faith and what this is all about. It's kind of like goes through the fundamentals of what it looks like to follow Jesus. And then we talk about some of the other things that are coming up, including our launch day, which, at this point in time, we thought we were going to launch October 3rd, 2021. That was the day. And then we found out shortly after that there's a street fair happening right on our street, right in front of our building on October 3rd, 2021. So probably not going to launch on that day. We're going to have to push it to October 10th. So that kind of worked out nicely for us, because we decided we're going to decide at this launch team meeting today, we'll just put up our booth out there and we'll promote and say, hey, next week we're going to be starting right here, right behind us. So come join us. All right. So after we get done talking about the calendar, then we move into what I like to call the development stage of the launch team meeting. And this is where we're going to talk either about mission, vision, values, or strategy. What's the mission of local church? What's the vision? What are our values? And how do we execute all of that? But regardless of whatever we're talking about, I'm always going to start this section of the meeting the same way. And I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, okay, can anybody tell me what our mission is here at local church? And it sounds like it does right now. Crickets. And everybody's like, and then somebody will finally be like, mumble, I think maybe it has something to do with Jesus. Yeah, it has something to do with Jesus. And can anybody else put anything together there? Well, is together in it? Yeah, together's in it. Here's our mission at local church. Try to remember this. The mission is together, we will inspire Long Islanders to follow Jesus. Everything that we do at local church is in an effort to accomplish that mission. And so, a couple things I want to highlight about our mission is the word inspire. For us, we don't want to force anybody or pressure anybody, guilt anybody, manipulate anybody. We want people to be inspired, which means in spirit, which means we want it to be their decision. I mean, we want to make compelling arguments or to do whatever we can to compel people towards that, but we're not going to force anybody. We're here to inspire people to follow Jesus, which means it takes patience and time for that to happen. That's okay, because we're patient. The other thing I want to highlight about our mission is we're here to inspire people to follow Jesus, because we just think that everybody follows something. We all follow something, whether we realize it or not. Some of us, I'm just following, the plan that my parents mapped out for my life. I'm going to school where they wanted me to go to school. I'm dating when they wanted me to do that. So others of us, we're just following, just follow that cute girl wherever she goes. That's where I'm going. We follow after wherever we're going to get the biggest paycheck. Whoever's going to pay me the most, that's where I'm going. We just think that following Jesus and deciding to follow Jesus will make your life better, and it will make you better at life. To manage your emotions the way Jesus taught us to manage our emotions, to treat other people the way Jesus taught us to treat other people, to relate to God the way Jesus taught us to relate to God. We just think if that's what you choose to follow, your life will get better and you will get better at life. So our mission is to inspire people not to just believe something, that's easy, but to follow Jesus in everything that they do. So here's how we're going to do that. We do that by executing what we call our vision. Our vision. Can anybody tell us our vision? Silence. Nobody knows. Because we're brand new, right? We're just getting ready to get launched, so nobody knows us yet. So let me tell you what our vision is. All vision is just a preferred picture of the future. It's what we hope we will be in 1 year's time, in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 20 years' time. This is what we imagine the future will look like. So here's what our vision is. Our vision at local church is this. We imagine being a church that unchurched people love. We imagine being a church that unchurched people love. And unchurched, the word unchurched there, it's just our concise way of saying people who don't really like church. Maybe we got some in the room today. People who maybe, they were forced to go to church when they were a kid, their parents made them, but as soon as they could say no, they're like, yeah, I'm done with this. I don't want anything to do with this church stuff anymore. We want to be a church for people who don't really like church, for unchurched people. But not only that, but we want to be a church that unchurched people love. That when they encounter us, whether we're gathered together on a Sunday morning or at a lunch team meeting like this, or whether we're in the workplace or at school or at home, any interaction that they have with people who call local church home, that they would be like, man, I don't know if I believe what they believe, but man, I really like being around them. I'm sure glad they're here. But they're pretty cool people. I really love them. We want to be a church that unchurched people love. And let me tell you why. Did you know that 7 out of 10 Long Islanders don't go to church? It's probably more than that. This is kind of a conservative number. But 70% of Long Islanders in our county alone, in Suffolk County, that's more than 1 million people. That's like 1.1 million people. We have 1.5 million people who live in Suffolk County. 1.1 million people don't go to church. And you should know this. We're not mad about that. I'm not upset about that. In fact, I get it. I used to be that person. I used to think that church had no value whatsoever, that it was irrelevant, that it just wasn't for me. And chances are, if that's you and you're like, I don't know what I think about church, I don't know if I want that to be a part of my life. If I had your experiences, if I heard what you heard, or saw what you saw, I would probably make the same decisions that you make. So I get it. It's over 70% of Long Island's not really church people. But here's what we think. We think that, look, for most of us, when we have a bad experience at the dentist, for most of us, maybe not all of us, we don't stop going to the dentist. We might go to a different dentist, but we don't stop going because we just know that, our teeth are better off when we go to the dentist. And for those of us, the pandemic kind of helped with this, but for those of us who've just come to the conclusion that we are more than just our physical body, right? That we're also mental and emotional and spiritual. For those of us who've kind of come to that conclusion, right, I just want to be ready if and when you decide to come back to church for your own spiritual, emotional health, right? We just want to be, if and when you are ready, we want to be the church that you love when you interact with us in the community or, at some sort of event that we're doing here. But we're going to have our work cut out for us. Man, do we have our work cut out for us, because you should do this. But when I talk to my unchurched friends, people who don't really like church, and I like to ask this question, I like to say, hey, would you give me one word that comes to mind when you think about church? And give me one word that comes to mind when you think about God. The answers are quite disheartening, but I get it. Here's some of the answers that I get back. You should do this. One word that comes to mind when you think about church. My unchurched friends say things like this. The top answers they give me: judgmental, hypocritical, boring, irrelevant, manipulative. And then I say, hey, one word that comes to mind when you think about God. These are the top answers: rules, angry, distant. God's like a coping mechanism for like weak-minded people. It's just there to make them feel better. Heck, I get it. I understand why that's the case, because let's just be real. Let's just be honest. That's what we're about here. The church hasn't always done a great job at projecting positivity, right? And so for many people, 7 out of 10 Long Islanders at least, what they think of when they think of church isn't very positive. So we've got our work cut out for us. So how are we going to be a church that they love to attend? Well, I'm going to tell you how. This is part of our strategy. This is what we do. We got to do whatever we can to change the way people think about church. We got to do whatever we can to change the way they think about church. That church doesn't have to be, a group of angry, disgruntled, cranky people who just kind of sit around and point fingers and judge and criticize and, they're hypocrites themselves. It doesn't have to be that way. That church can be fun and vibrant and positive and encouraging. And it can be something that is outward focused. That's why we're building this place the way we're building it. That's why we're building a cafe. That's why we kind of dress the way we dress, just kind of like normal. That's why we talk the way we talk. We don't want to talk over people's heads and talk, get too much into like the nitty gritty of things where people are like, I don't really understand what you're talking about there. It's why we are friendly and we wave hello and we greet people and we have free coffee and free bagels and we do all sorts of events for our community. It's because we're trying to change the way people think about church. And here's the thing, this is so great. And we're going to see this in a second. If we can do this well, I think if we can change the way people think about church, we will be set up to change the way they think about God. And I'm going to tell you why I think that. Because one day, Jesus gathered his followers together. He's like, come on, listen up. Big old crowd comes and gathers around because everybody loved to hear Jesus speak. He was a fantastic communicator, and just people loved it. So they're listening to Jesus. And he launches into what's referred to as the Sermon on the Mount. It's like his most popular sermon. You should read it. You can find it in the Gospel of Matthew, called the Gospel of Matthew. Really, it's like Matthew's notes. Matthew was taking notes when he was listening to the sermon. He wrote it down, and then we put it into the Bible, and now you can read it, Matthew 5 through 7. You should read the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus launches into this sermon, and he looks at the audience, and he says the most fascinating thing. He looks at his audience, and he says, you are the light of the world. Like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. You are the light of the world. To which I imagine his audience is sitting there. Light of the world. Looking around, looking behind them, like, who's he talking to? Is he talking to somebody back there? Surely he's not talking about me. Surely he doesn't mean that I'm the light of the world. I mean, I'm a nobody from nowhere. I mean, I'm like a day laborer from Galilee. I'm a tax collector. Nobody even likes me. There's no way. Like, I'm a smelly fisherman. Nobody wants to be near me. There's no way I'm the light of the world. He must have that wrong. To which I imagine Jesus is saying, shh, listen, guy. I know who I'm talking to, and I know what I said. You are the light of the world. And if you and I were in the audience that day, he would say that to you and me. If you're my follower, you should know you are the light of the world. Regardless of your education, of what you look like, of what your past is like, what your story is, you are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. And then he goes on, he says, no one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Well, that would be absurd. It would defeat the whole purpose. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand, or in our case, it's placed up in the ceiling, where it gives light to everyone in the house. You know what that means? That means that no one is exempt. That anybody who comes in contact with light gets light. It doesn't matter what they look like, or whether or not that you like them or I like them, or if they're disrespectful or nice people or whatever. It doesn't matter. Anybody in your sphere of influence, when they come in contact with you, well, you are the light of the world. And everyone who comes in contact with light gets lit up. See, what Jesus is saying here is, and is that this world can be a dark place, right? This world can be pretty dark at times, but you have the potential to light it up. So when your friend is going through the darkness of like addiction, you have the potential to bring some light into that whole situation. When your family member is kind of going through the darkness of some health crisis or something, you are the light of the world. You have potential to bring some light into that situation. When your coworker is going through the darkness of kind of depression and loneliness and some dark thoughts, you have the potential of bringing light to that situation. The fishermen that he was talking to, the day laborers that he was talking to, the tax collectors who nobody liked, all these people who would have said, well, it can't be me. I'm not qualified. He would say, yeah, actually you are. You should know this. You are the light of the world. You don't hide a light. That defeats the purpose. So anybody who comes in contact with you is coming in contact with light. And then, just to be clear, I love this. Jesus just being completely practical here. So just in case you're not getting it, okay? Just in case you're getting lost in the word picture of it, like, oh, it's so nice to think about me being light. Oh, how beautiful and pretty. I'll go everywhere in light rooms. Just in case you're kind of getting lost, let me bring you back in for a second and get really practical. Here's what Jesus says next. He says, in the same way, let your good deeds, in other words, this is actually something that I want you to do. I'm not content with you believing something. That's easy. I want this to affect your behavior, affect the way you treat other people, affect the way you love other people, even other people who maybe aren't so lovable. Let your good deeds, he said, shine out for all to see. Nobody's exempt. If they're in your sphere of influence, they're getting some light. He goes on, this is so crazy. When you do this, he says, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. There's a sense in which Jesus is saying, if we can do all we can to let our good deeds shine out and to change the way people think about the church, change their mind from, the church is just hypocritical. The church is just angry. The church is just boring. If we can do whatever we can to change their mind through our actions, through our good deeds, through the way that we treat other people, through the way that we love other people, we will change the way they think about God. People will actually take note. And it won't, maybe not be the first time or the second time or the 10th time or the 20th time, but eventually, they may even start to praise their Heavenly Father as a result. Do you know what you praise? You want to know what I praise? I praise things I love. I praise things that are trustworthy. I praise things that add value to my life. I praise things that I care about and that I think care about me. So Jesus is saying, listen, there's a sense in which your actions and the way you treat other people as my followers may change the way people think about their Heavenly Father, so much so that they will praise their Father in heaven. So I gotta ask, what if the church was known for its good deeds? Let me make this a little bit more personal for our lunch team meeting here. What if local church was known for its good deeds? Because our church, our vision is to be a church that unchurched people love. Whether we are gathered or scattered, we want people to take note of the fact that we're loving, we're kind, we treat other people the way Jesus asked us to treat other people and the way he treated other people. And so what if we were known for that? What if we were known for our good deeds and the positive involvement we have in our community? That's what we want to create as a church. That's our mission and our vision. So, launch team meeting in August of 2021, over. Here's what I want to do now. Everybody in the room, right here in this moment, let's just pretend we got back into our time machine and we traveled right back to this moment. Even if you're watching, we're right back here and we're all together. Again, here's what I want to say to all of us, okay? Our mission at local church is still to inspire Long Islanders to follow Jesus. Our mission at local church, our vision at local church is still to be a church that unchurched people love. And let me just tell you, here's what I think is just so amazing. I think that 1 year ago, I wouldn't have even believed that this could happen, but it did. Did you know that it's happening? It's happening. Even though we've only existed for a little bit amount of time, it is happening here, which is so great. Did you know that just a few months ago, when we were only 7 months old, when local church was only 7 months old, that we were awarded by the whole town of Brookhaven, we were awarded as the business of the month, which is just, it blows my mind. And the reason why, we had to go to town hall, we had to meet with our councilman on live TV, they gave us this kind of recognition, and we had to do this, and they told us the reason why we are recognizing you as business of the month, here's a picture of us with the councilman getting our award. The reason why they said that we're recognizing you is because of your positive community involvement. Because they took note of all the families, over 200 families that we fed on Christmas Eve. They took note of all the children that we sponsored so that they could participate in the Farmingville Easter egg hunt. They took note of all the family-friendly events that we've been able to put on for our community. They took note of how we've opened up our doors to great organizations in our community that people can get help from, like AA and NA, which both of them meet here every single week. The Girl Scouts kind of meet here as well. They took note of the fact that, we've got a great program where we bring in students with special needs and help give them job training here. They took note of all these things that local church is doing, even in just the 7 months of time that we've existed. And they recognize us as business of the month because of our positive involvement in the community. Now, I'm not saying this to brag. I mean, I can't even really brag. I couldn't do this on my own. I'm saying this because I want you to imagine the future with me for a second. Imagine we time traveled in the future. Imagine how much more we could do to impact our community together. Because back in August of 2021, we were 10 people. Here we are. This was the local church. This was local church. This was our local church launch team. These were the 10 people who believed that God could turn a dream into a reality. They believed that God could use us to create a church that inspires Long Islanders to follow Jesus by being a church that unchurched people love. So they gave their blood, sweat, tears, money, time, energy. They gave it all to start local church without knowing what would happen. And just imagine with me for a second, if God could use a small group of 10 people right here in Farmingville, Long Island, imagine what he could do with a group of people this size, including everybody who's watching. Imagine what he could do with 50, 60, 70, 100, 200 people. Imagine what next year could look like, 5 years could look like, 10 years could look like, because here's the reality. Here's what's true. Local church is still a brand new church. We may have launched, we may have opened our doors to the public, but we're just a little tiny itty bitty baby. And we are still on a mission to inspire Long Islanders to follow Jesus by being a church that unchurched people love. And we cannot do it alone. We have got so much work to do, and we need perhaps your help to do it. So, if any of that sounds compelling, exciting to you at all, if you think to yourself at all like, yeah, I feel like our community needs that, needs more of that, or if you think to yourself like, yeah, that's something I want to be a part of, or that's the kind of church I want my kids to grow up in, if you're thinking any of that stuff, and perhaps, you're thinking maybe I want to engage in that in some way. Let me give you just a couple of practical next steps that you should consider when you're ready. So here's a couple things. Just like a launch team meeting, because essentially this is a launch team meeting. Right now, we're having a launch team meeting, and we're talking about the future. We're talking about our mission, vision, values, and strategy for the future. So here's what I would tell you as launch team members. You should consider inviting, wearing, and sharing. Invite people, like, hey, how was your weekend? My weekend was good. How was your weekend? My weekend was really good too. I just kind of watched a lot of TV, went to church on Sunday. Oh, you go to church? Yeah, oh, that's kind of weird. Yeah, I know, but my church is pretty great. You should come. There's free bagels and coffee. Never be afraid to leverage the free bagels and coffee to invite people to church. That's okay. You tell them, hey, come sit next to me. I promise you it's not weird. They're not going to do anything weird. And let me just tell you, as one of your pastors, I promise you that we will do everything in our power to remain consistent here so that you know what to expect. And you'll know what to expect when you bring your friend. Nothing weird is going to happen, I promise, okay? So invite. Maybe wear the shirt. Okay, wear your local, we give them away like candy. If you don't have one, go grab one, we'll get you a shirt. Wear your shirt, all around the town. Maybe someone will be like, hey, what's that? That's local church, you should come, okay? Wear your shirt, and then, what's the other one? Share. One of the easiest ways, chances are, most of you that are in this room right now, or that are even watching, most of you encountered local church on social media before you did anywhere else. Most of the time when I ask people, hey, how'd you hear about us? It's always Instagram, Facebook, That's it. So if you imagine what you could do just by sharing, that's it. Sharing. I know you're busy Long Islanders. You got a lot going. You might be able to commit hours of time or whatever. That's okay. Could you just share? Just share a post every now and then, or share all the posts. Write a comment, like it, whatever. Invite, share. Here's the next step that you might want to consider when you're ready. Join the volunteer team. The best way to make any church feel like your church is to join a team. Even if you're not a follower of Jesus, you might be surprised by that. We have people on our team who would say, yeah, I don't know where I'm at yet with this. That's okay. They keep an open mind, but that's okay. You can join a team, because here's what I know about you, regardless of what you think about God or anything. You want to be loved. You want to be known. You want to be cared for. You want people to know your name. You want people to miss you when you're gone. So if you don't have that kind of a community anywhere else, we'd love to invite you into our community. And one of the best ways to experience that is join a team. You're on a mission together. It builds camaraderie, build connection. It's great. Or maybe participate in a group. As Emily mentioned earlier, we got 2 groups coming up this fall. So you should maybe consider joining a volunteer team. Here's the thing. This is what's so great about this. This might sound like such a taxing thing to do. Like, oh my gosh, joining a team. It sounds like a lot, to do. But really, think about it. The minimal amount for joining a team is like 1 hour on a Sunday. You're already coming here on Sundays, right? Could you come 1 hour early once a month? That could be your commitment. You could do more than that, of course, but really, the minimum commitment is 1 extra hour a month on a Sunday. So maybe think about joining a team when you're ready. And then finally, this is something else that you can do, is give. Give. Now, I don't want, if you're brand new here, I'm not really talking, I don't want any pressure, I don't feel any pressure for this, but if you call local church home and this hasn't become something that, you've started doing yet, you should maybe consider, maybe pray about whether or not you should start giving on a regular basis. Let me tell you why. Because all the families that we fed on Christmas Eve, all the children that we sponsored, to do the Easter egg hunt, all the events that we've done that have brought people in here so that they can hear about Jesus and decide to follow Jesus, all of it has only been possible because the people sitting around you, the people here, have been so generous and faithful to give. And not just one time, they give every week. That's the only way that we can keep the lights on, so that we can bring students in here, so that we can bring AA, NA, Girl Scouts, all sorts of stuff in here. So maybe you might want to consider giving so that we can inspire Long Islanders to follow Jesus. Because come on, here's the thing. If you're a follower of Jesus, Jesus would say, you are the light of the world. Like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp. No one lights a lamp. No one lights a lamp. Just making my point here. No one does this. You don't light a lamp and let me cover that up. I don't want anybody to see this light. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. I'm just telling you. If you call yourself a follower of Jesus and you're not like making an impact, you may want to think about that, because you don't light a lamp and then cover it up and hide it and, stay at home. Whatever, lights are out in the world. That's their job. They're to lighten dark things up. No one lights a lamp and hides it. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. Let me pray with you. Well, Heavenly Father, thank you, as always, just for preserving Matthew's notes, Matthew's gospel, what Matthew wrote down about your life, your message, your death, and your resurrection. Thank you that 2,000 years later, we can read your words, and they're so inspiring, and they're so enlightening. And God, I pray that you would give us all in the room just the wisdom to know what to do with what we just read, with what you've kind of commissioned us to be, the light of the world. Give us wisdom to know what to do about that. What's our next step? And help us to have the courage to do it. God, so that we can do whatever we can through our actions, through our light, to change the way people think about church and change the way they think about you, so that they might be inspired to follow you. And as a result, we just know, because many of us have been there, we think their life will get better, and they'll get better at life just like ours has. So thank you. Thank you so much for being so gracious and loving. Thank you that when Jesus stepped foot on this planet, he said, if you want to know what God is like, you can look at me. And that when we look at Jesus, we don't see angry. We don't see distant. We don't see far off. We don't see bully in the sky. Instead, we see intimate, personal, loving, caring, forgiving, grace-filled. And God, I pray that everyone who encounters us would encounter those things as we seek to follow Jesus, and their mind might be changed about who you are. And I thank you for all of those who have dedicated. I mean, it's so much more than just the 10 that I put up on the screen. I mean, by now we've got dozens of people who have dedicated so much of their life to local church. Thank you so much, God, for fulfilling your promise and building your church right here on Long Island. It's a miracle to watch, and I'm so glad and thankful to be a part of it. We give you the praise for it. In Jesus' name.